I'm sending one link. You have the Twitter access? Just use the Twitter access to sort of promote our YouTube streaming link. Huh? Content you can put whatever you want. I'll put it in the Discord and all. Yeah, we are live. We are live.
And that flipping issues or
No, this is the only stream section I'll use.
will you verify? Is it a mirror of this or what?
No, it's a proper.
आपने मेरे को Telegram पे link भेजा है ना? मैं check करता हूँ. And what's the password for Justco sir?
Just connect, but that's justco underscore net. Use justco underscore net.
Just connect.
Yeah. See, the mirror issue is in OBS. We are not using OBS, so that's fine.
You verified?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is it play now? Or is it off?
It is off our system. We can actually put it lower so that this is what it's for.
Keep an eye on the thing. This is center.
Our purpose is to make people happy during digital interaction.
It's lagging, sir. Sorry.
Yeah, there will be a minor lag.
Yeah, of course, that's inevitable.
Yeah, it's perfectly visible.
Will be the number of people turning
This is the one.
500
It's still because our exposure is still
Yeah.
50. More than 500.
170.
We'll tilt it a little bit down because we are seeing that exposure. That's not really.
Okay, we're good then. If you could increase the height, it would be perfect, but okay. That would be perfect. I could have
On this intention of who are coming to the events.
I think the
Their main focus is to get to the end of the event where food and beverage and everything is like.
okay, developers is just searching for a new job.
I mean, good food and drink. Looking for jobs.
Don't tell everyone.
Thoughts of the events. What is the inherent thing that you want? From the parents like them, the practice like
Nowadays, I don't know why more and more events are not giving food. So we come without expectations. But I think how they can get
in Pepsi, everybody is a builder and everybody is a seller. Just the last question, how to be charming like you? Very tough question.
We are no longer selected by technology. No, we operate by technology.
I would say every participant has their own chain. There's not one blockchain. Data is mined, and it only becomes accessible to an application like Cocolang when 9 run.
थोड़ा नीचे करना है इसको थोड़ा exposed
Never move the product. It's the vision and the values. Your product vision, you have the right set of values. The products will take care of itself.
we look cool there you want to keep
I love the shot where AJ is just walking in and like people and let's go, let's get this going.
here
Like the opening shot of
do
this
some
guy.
innovation
AJ is just walking out of the room.
make others money and grow the ecosystem. I don't hear these routine
things with Ananda. I always hear about the vision for the next 10, 20, 30 years instead of a more tactical plan from Ananda.
Somebody asked me what is my fundamental experiment. I got to think into engagement of this. Our purpose is to make people happy.
Are we ready? All right.
What is Coco? Coco is basically a context-oriented and static-type programming language. It's pretty high level and indent based, so Python is just very readable, right? The language as a whole, it prioritizes readability, auditability, and safety.
It was really nice. I had a great learning experience. Learned first time Coco language.
I'm getting to know about the Coco, how it reduces the lines of code as compared to the Solidity is not language.
We got introduced to MOI as well as Coco language and how it is beneficial to that objects.
Cocolang is comparatively more beginner friendly than using Solidity, and it just shortens the code between Solidity and Cocolang. So yeah, I look forward to build some more projects on Cocolang.
See, one of the major problems in blockchain is scalability, and this protocol seems to be fixing that, from my perspective.
And still now we are introducing about the and then about the
I learned language. I didn't learn, but I just saw the difference between Solidity and like in the presentation. They are completely explaining the difference between the Ethereum and Ethereum compatibility and what am I actually doing to make it differentiable for the current development process. So definitely we need to work on it.
MOI is emerging as a new blockchain and building code to understand and more curious to know.
Good evening all. Thanks for coming. So I'm going to say that
Hi.
Singapore.
All right.
So what do you do? Also, for me, right, I work as it's small but this company
to understand the stress to be meaningful.
Oh, you create my school.
Yeah. So it's also publish our ideas and things. Bitcoin and yeah, so this is smaller segment so buy it as a service so that we can buy it there.
We also do for free.
Focus on a single currency being statefully managed and transferred using anonymous validators.
I think we should do something.
And they provided the kind of
Yeah,
Fast forward to 2014, there was support multiple people on the same blockchain.
We are also looking
The combination of that was the smart contracts, they have chain focus capabilities.
without compromising. So
Radios
we
to go from
have a target
frequencies to thousands of frequencies.
currently we have a destination which has around 400.
And that was a great progress. Out of several smart contract exchanges.
On-board traditional
But fast forward to 2023, now the way you use technology is Web3 networks, digital networks, and
we also want to hire
we operate. So we moved away from using Web3 and PLD manage growing supporting. We are no longer This fundamentally means that we are moving away from absent. We are moving away from network focused on interaction. We are moving away from thousands of cryptocurrencies supporting billions of digital assets. And we are moving away from this static generalized model to dynamic and personalized model. And this places enormous demand on engagement. Solution has been to create short chains, roll-ups, cycles, which are like away from the main support this heterogeneous value transfer needs. Billions of digital assets. And this is creating enormous the same data thousands of So what we do is the which is able to create a flat internet where multiple networks can coexist and scale as needed to support them.
Yes.
Context aware. We are scale infinitely without the need for side changes as an existing things will be an option based on this is also scalability where simplified access and also having done this, we've done this by three foundational elements. One, a new consensus mechanism which works at the interaction. So it's a peer-to-peer consensus using the central bottleneck. Thereby you still have scalability. You also new data structure which is called multi-link, which brings the best of the UTX of the exchange, which will deliver both security and as you scale, as you put millions of nodes on the network, you're able to have security as well. In language and an execution environment of Cocolang basically. And these are languages and execution environments specifically built for these classes. So that you get the data personalization things like that. So sum it up, as we move from these applications to participants, moving away from fixed and inflexible elements or we used to get the results maybe 12 hours, sometimes overnight. We used to take a couple of hours. When we started with 3, I felt like at home. Couldn't watch anything at the same time. Maybe I feel like it happened in mainframes happened. And when it came to the stage, I was wondering, I'm in web working with a lot of all my trying to make that and trying to explain very interesting topics. So, the other thing is, those days, we used to have relation databases, hierarchical databases. And find what happened in the last very interesting question. Looks like we're back where they that's the thought I had when I walked out. So I thought, let's take this journey on the first technology is evolving. Where that comes from, we can that's the foundational approach. And this type of humanizing it's like a motherhood and amplified statement at this point. Nobody can be comfortable. Everybody wants to and I'd like to what do you think what do you can make it relevant? Digital world is evolving, right? So I think evolving from 50s. So if you look at those days when got started, all around management. Technology was primarily was processing that influence of payroll. Unfold was a primary driver, efficiency was the game. And one thing of the business model was all about the pricing. That was the kind of input into it, the idea of pricing. This happened recently, it was all about Then if you look at it around 1970s, you had initial VIP coming. Right? That changed the game. Previously, I don't know how much movement was pretty large. I think branding on before this was pretty large. But then no two of them talk to each other. One will talk to each other. So what did BCK do fundamentally? It developed something at a very high level. That's what it is. You take it down in our mission started back taking application in one computer, taking another application. Tech work, right? You can't build an application, it's not just computers don't talk. So come TCP/IP, whole idea of interconnected computers. Other people they get this idea of computers. Very nice. Customer capture. And many idea of customer came in, idea of the platform came in, and your value driver became total customer value, and your business model has been on from like CMPs and platforms, which are more relevant to a customer. And we have seen that evolve in the last 20, 30 years, right? They are all the way from Web 1 to Web 2, and brilliant stuff. Live service changed quite a bit. Right? No longer free of a lot of things. So then, and we get the Ubers on the wall, Salesforce on the wall, tremendous problems. Then comes to now, today's business. And we want to be decentralized. They're saying, now, why should computers stop today? But can computers stop like human like that? It's all about client behavior, right? Computers talk, client and so can you get to one of the like a human want to start it from and the culmination of it is trying to say how do I do value transfer.
Yeah.
That was the whole idea of when these peer-to-peer conversations are supposed to plan can nations stop still be connected overall, right? The point is that it's not a point of money. Overall, I can just do a room, but I can have a peer-to-peer conversation. And this guy came and said, what do you do? Value that. That's the question. All of these what
it's like a full day until I saw that this one is like it's a very good and I can just take a
and this is the question we ask you.
Just decided
Look at it. What's the change? You now eat like
yeah.
tomato sauce, maybe also
I think this like
Uber's
I like some of them. You go there, you use like only 10%.
of late, that should be the
Yeah.
you may not be able to write. So that's where we are heading, right? So technology no longer as supporting artists like the way it was in 1980s, becoming a main artist. This was the recognition that we had. The way I communicate this is we are no longer connected by technology. This is happening. Now we operate within foundationally. Now, this creates a lot of possibilities around that. A lot of complexity as well. Right? So when you live your life, So we are no longer connected to technology, we operate with technology. So at a very high level, the use of the tool has changed, but the tool itself has not changed for the last 8 years. Right? The dimensional shift has not happened. So when you live by technology, what has happened? Let me give you 5 examples, and then we'll try to see what I've done there. Assume I have an 100 rupee note here. I give it to different people with different needs. Is the 100 rupee same value for everyone? No, right? So when somebody who is in need, it has got a different value. So let's keep that example in mind. The second example is, assume you meet how do you build a relationship with a new person? The first time you probably say hi. The second time you probably shake your hand. The third time you probably give them numbers. And let's look at a third example, right? Now I'm talking here. So what I communicate here is what I want to share with you. The kind of privacy concerns I have, what I share is very different. Assume I want to talk something a little bit more sensitive from a design standpoint with Manish. I will go and talk about this technology. And if I really want to get hush, I get into a room and have a conversation. And the last example I will give you is if you're going to pay for coffee, you would expect this 100 rupees and you want them to be done very quickly. Whereas if you want to buy a house in Beverly Hills, you work on it for once, you take your time, you validate the process, and you want to get it. You want the trust to be very high, you want to make sure that it works. Now, what is common in all of this? Can anybody answer it? It is completely personal and confidential, right? So, how do today's computers give? And they make differentiation. They can. All of them are information transfers. Today's computers work on information transfers, not a value transfers. And human interactions are primarily value transfers, which fundamentally means it is participation. So what we call as 2017 is we call this word called digitally interacting world. That's where we're going. That technology is a foundational part of your life. It's not enough if you have peer-to-peer communication. That is just an information transfer, which is what is happening in many of the technologies today. But you don't have the participant fundamentally be part and control the interaction. So, literally, it is your values, but you don't have a seat at the table. Imagine this. Would you ever do that in your life where somebody else drives behavior is not possible? Right? So the reason is not because somebody is nefarious who wants to do it. It's because the use of technology has changed, but the technology has not changed. We are allowing technology closer and closer into life. But then now we cannot have centric, it has to become participants. This is what we call as human-like interaction. The ability for the participant to fundamentally control and manage your interaction the way you want. You want the coffee transactions to finish in 30 seconds, and you're willing to take additional risk. Otherwise, the coffee will get very full. You can't say I need 25 blocks of consensus before I give you the coffee. Whereas for a Beverly Hills purchase, I am able to wait for 2 days if I want, right? A lot of people verify the transaction so that you have higher degree
So the kind of personalization and participant centricity that you want to have, you don't have in technology. And this is what we call as enabling human-like interactions. This is what human centricity is. Go to the next slide. So just take a look. All right, that's where we move on. Good mixing. So let us take an idea of how we have changed this, right? We'll worry about this stack a little bit later. But how do you introduce participant computation into computation? This is the next question, right? So you said today's computers, at fundamental level, doesn't allow participants. You don't have a seat at the table, right? Now, how do you do that? So to do that, you need to go and understand at a very high level what is the framework for today's computational model, right? It's based on an idea of activity, which is the foundations of computation. It takes 3 inputs. I'll simplify this to a very simplified version. Professor sir, please forgive me if I'm making any mistakes here, okay? So the 3 inputs that it takes. 1, where is the process happening? What is the computation working on? How is the computation done? I'll repeat it again. Where, what, how? What is dimension of who is processing the computation is not fundamentally part of the algorithm, right? It is not part of the algorithm. Today you are an activist for computation. You cannot enable the computation because you are an afterthought. So, as Turing describes this, I will go. It is discrete, finite, and controlling. The 3 words that he uses, okay? Discrete, finite, and controlling. Would you define human interactions like that? It should be continuous, infinite, and personal. That's the foundational problem that we have. Until we solve this problem, you're not going to be able to an environment where participant is a foundational dimension of computation. And that's what we have done using this idea of a K machine, where we have built participant foundation into computation. You have a seat at the table first, right? So this new intelligent machinery that we are talking about is contextual, right? It is context aware. And let me give you one more example, and I will close this topic. So I was dropping my daughter off in a university in the US, and robots, really sophisticated robots, which deliver food all through the campus. Brilliant. They wait for the red signal, they wait for the yellow signal, they cross when it is safe. They very, very extremely nimble, go around blocks. But I had this thought exercise. Are they people on this question, right? Do they exhibit human-like interactions? And my thought exercise is very simple. So there's zero signals. And 2 robots come in. Will one of them wait while the other cross? They will all be interacting with everybody, right? That doesn't happen if maybe undeterministic, but predictable. Right? What I mean, both of them may run, both of them may stop. But the true contextual compute machine, based on the interactions that you have in real life, right? You have your creative judgments based on delivering food. One of them will wait, one of them will cross. The second model is what we call as a contextual compute. The first model is what we call as conceptual intelligence. We have built on this idea and built a framework called K machine, which foundationally introduces participants to competition. You have a seat at the table first.
Obviously, I'm not saying
That's the first step, contextual computing. So, this is what I talked about, of intelligent visionary, systemic intelligence versus contextual intelligence. New dimensions of participation. And I'll talk about the last one. Now, yeah, move on. That's fine. We keep it at ISO. So, how do you define intelligence now? This new contextual compute framework, how do you define intelligence, right? So the old framework, intelligence is defined as something which is discrete, finite, and controlling. It happens after the knowledge discovery has happened. We define intelligence as something which happens only when you interact. The act of interaction defines the intelligence. If you want to pick up another example, assume you have a machine today which measures heights and weights of people, right? And the average height is 5'5" and the weight is 300 kg. So a programmer would say the intelligence will be 5'5" and 300 kg. The new contextual compute model assume a small person, 4'8" and 150 kg interacts with this machine. What would be his conclusion? Would it be an average height and average weight? His conclusion would be, his value would be, personally, he would say 30%. Whereas somebody who's 6 feet tall and 400 kilograms will see it as a small person. The whole idea is intelligence is the act of observation. And after the act of observation, what you have is only knowledge. This is the foundational change that we're trying to bring. So no intelligence exists without an interaction. So that's why the interaction state machine. So when two people interact, so it's always networks, right? Networks, people interact, so peer-to-peer interaction model. So we have interaction state machine built on top of that. So since values are personal, we need to transfer values. And all the time, we need to transfer values. And then interaction state machine allows peer-to-peer value transfer, because human simplicity is all about peer-to-peer value transfer. And we have built a state machine replication. Obviously, we have billions of nodes. I'm sure all of you got a diary which says millions of nodes and billions of transactions. So if you build it like this, you'll have billions of nodes. So obviously, all you and I interact with the transactions. This will happen to somebody across all the networks. We need a state machine replication technology, which is the ability for you to transfer multiple devices. So we built a state machine replication technology foundation is very important. That is interaction state machine. I already told you the difference between information and value. So today's most of the distributed systems, if you want to ask a distributed system what is thing is balanced? What is the true question that you want to answer, or even in a blockchain? What is take is actually balance?
You can go ahead.
I do not know whether the balance that you give me is the finalized balance, right? In large network, that's all the question that you have. So what we have done is, I believe balance. Agreement is basically made every object interaction state or a network level object. Today, computers, all objects are node level objects. So balance is the idea of context. Allows you final value agreed value. So that is available for every object. So what does that do to the overall solution? Today, if me and Professor Pandurangan are doing an interaction, at the same time, we can bring value to better specific to be controlled by certain parts of the network. Pandurangan can do the same thing, and we can execute that interaction while Manish and Rahul use your interaction. The ability to control the real-to-real interaction, where you manage the conflict allowed by this idea of interaction situation. So, and we have also created something called context. So context is kind of this, your intermediary in the network. Let me 1 minute explain what it is. That's the previous slide, we have given like a company. 100 rupees of and you give me a card. And just between both of us, then there is no need of recording. It's a person that is a foundation person. No one is scared as long as you're happy, things done. So why does the recording happen? Because the personal value is to become a general purpose value. Some people need logic to say that this is something that AKL professors have taken. Right? That needs to be recognized. Now, who is the intermediary who does the recognition? Right? That's the foundation question of all of distributed systems. All of blockchain is trying to do all of that. And today the model is the entire network design that can be written somewhere on the world. Wouldn't it be a lot more easier if me and some proxy of me and can write without burden of entire network? Why would that with light? Wouldn't that be a much better model? Right? Why would your post signatures are your friend, if your note page, right? You don't know the guys doing a transaction, part of validating that. We don't do that. That's what's happening today in distributed systems because
फाइल से टेबल मैं यहाँ ले लेता हूँ आप सब लोग I'll just put chairs like that. We'll take the table.
Their own separate targets.
Yeah.
Scalability, flexibility. Context is your target.
You don't need it at all. We are saying manage your mass chairs. At the end of the day, all everybody however, we brought right, we have built that protocol called ISP, I am able to transfer the context across the entire network. And because we are parts of finality, interaction finance, management and modification process.
be a very robust framework where you have millions of problems, millions of problems, primarily because your consensus algorithm is not centered around the participant, it is centered around a network. You can't take any network and move to another network. The thing is not possible. Bite-sized compartmentalized the idea of when I want to move from one network to another network.
So this is also good for privacy.
Transport problem we have.
Attached to the user
And the state
available to the application.
these my context goes to other network and see the audience on. They can all come to the market, they can value transfer. And we also made the agreement, writing in the book, at a peer-to-peer level, consensus also happens. Not everybody in the network needs to be part of that decision making. Both of them together. It's very good framework with a model and a bunch of people selling billions of transactions across the all your ecosystem. That is foundation.
For now, the states
Using all of it, we have an open network implementation.
So all types of
Why? Global value. Before I go to what point, let's go back to what the problems are. What the problems are.
So what it means that
Right? So I talked about Bitcoin. Bitcoin as the paper says, it's a peer-to-peer electronic.
on error you could make the right method solve through. Implement go method, you cannot throw that class as a
Key operating word is
so
peer-to-peer.
similarly in Python, you might need to have it in Python.
That's what makes it easy,
In
right?
Python,
Because otherwise, computers
and you could
were plans were more instead I go to peer-to-peer is where the easy thing is. Rather
you can throw classes.
Bitcoin was
You just have classes.
long enough success
And behaviors
where
classes.
you're
So
able
that you
to
could use that.
peer-to-peer value transfers.
So that's why the
Anonymous validation, open network. You got process that's just mind blowing. Using anonymous validator because anybody can in an open network, and I guarantee the value. Right? That's just so it was for one aspect. Now,
So
after the attempts to do classes with the main one classes, colored coins, like multiple aspects, multiple cryptocurrencies. Same blockchain. The culmination of that was 2014. And did a programmatic way of value transfer for multiple cryptocurrencies.
So we have a
But the problem was, in that exercise to make it general purpose, we moved away from peer-to-peer model to absent.
what we allow some
You no longer are peer-to-peer because it's an app level, right? What has happened is the apps have become the bottleneck. Now, interacting was not happening.
But let's say for example, you wanted to allow people to
Now,
solve it.
millions of city classes, every city class in the preference, real life, assets of value, dynamic city
Open judgment, if they're going to be the spectator, they can use like and then over just implement
thousands of cryptocurrencies.
so another case when they have two
Assets.
bombs, they have a deploy and see.
That has created a problem because your other aspects of the value
So if you just
data management, data management,
just
the other aspects,
but it's
execution aspect, and the
set
compute aspects.
right? So we just setting.
That's the aspect. Explosion happens of participants in India.
So the way you class
What has happened is you've got scalability problems. What next? When you scale the network, you need to reduce the performance comes from collectively layer, start taking side waves, become so we get walled gardens and layers of capabilities. Now, that's not a sustainable. Let's say how many millions of apps The world is moving to participant-centric model.
So I would
The way we have done it, voice participants oriented, but we see the demo. And interaction-centric. So every aspect of the stack, data management, and consensus, all of them have to be right? So it's not app-centric, it's participant-centric.
So
Has to be logic in files. Look at it, most of the protocols today don't have file matches. Read a file, write a file, anything doesn't exist. But the way you can do that, as a logic file, are native value. Right? Once they can do that, today, how many of you know if there was a hack which happened on Ethereum itself? Ethereum itself, people stole it from Etheream. Where does the hacks happen? In the smart contract bridges, correct? The problem is your application tokens have second order security. They are not native as protocol, right? When hacked, Ethereum doesn't hack the app tokens. The reason they are not trusted, they don't have the same trust security like all assets, logics, files, same first order security. Primarily because everything is very important point. And we also quite something called context execution that we have been ground up. MOI is a new completely data structure for multi-link allows security and scale security comes down because you got to take a and the civil resistance because if you look at it, values so basically what it goes into around it's a very interesting civil resistance resource on the market. Bootcamp is your load balance. The other problem you can between networks today is you have to be nodes, but then obviously maybe $900,000 nodes won't get any work. What is the point? Right? So have a load balancer, decentralized make and distribute network, not physical network because how can the system solve the problem because of your context part. So your port of the network, the network is actually very different parts. So you use yeah, so it's the same concept of borrowing the university, right? So that is that the state is something that you need to. If it's a use case, because without that, has no way to protect you from it. So it may be hard to believe you can demonstrate that it can be done with so you don't need charity. Right, and so it makes it very simple. Obviously, you don't need bridges. You don't need smart contracts close to the time. So many of your security because everything is market automatically very secure because it's not a global, it's not a computer. Which needs to work everywhere. It's very interaction centric. We have many interaction types managed to go through that so that for people who are the other world, the earlier world, it is like the ODBC. I was initially part of the team that all also ODBC drivers, right? So it's like execute the state manager is high side. Yeah. Control that, right? So this model you can build a something global computer. Because the intent when start always supposed to be because and scalable because it's not a guarantee because it could be state management. execution and consensus, all of them are there. Starting point is Bitcoin, where it by the state management at peer-to-peer level, you have completed the document, and made the other also. That's hyper scalable, millions of transactions, millions of transactions, fundamentally, there is no constraint at a design level. Obviously, we like making engineering from a design standpoint, as a conceptual standpoint, it makes it makes it very makes that more scalable. And finally, sustainable. This is a question: how many go there? How do you sustain? So no specialized hardware required. You can even work on an very simple Raspberry Pi, and similar systems. You don't have to burn forest to make sure that the transactions are sustainable. Use case standpoint, save DeFi. So DeFi is a big thing. Most of the smart transactions become taxed. So how do you save DeFi? Because smart contract level, smart system level, smart contract level. A hack in smart contract has to open up all the assets of other finance. Decentralized identities, another use case. Adaptable storage management. That's a very interesting use case for enterprises. As more and more people the shared infrastructure model of using cloud. Economies of scale. What happens is you still need to be able to have your own personalization on a shared infrastructure. How do you do that? So that's a very hard problem. You do that based on the idea of context because it's customized. And we also have a practical Web2 to Web3 migration model. One of the largest problems of transformations of this magnitude that I have observed with state management. How does it work? Web2 is real, trillions of dollars of investment gone to Web2. We cannot say, hey, okay, move over, here comes Web3. So things doesn't exist. They don't need this engage 400 mainframes, believe it or not. So there's always a change management path. We have practical Web3 migration path. The way we have done that is decoupling storage, identity, document, and then that's the
sender is we send the and flip for a token, whatever the Coco module is, right? So that module
Great. Okay, getting started now. Hello and welcome everybody to the fireside chat with MOI Protocol and Uniland. So let me just take a minute to sort of introduce the panel. Along with us, here is Ganesh. Ganesh is the core team member of MOI Protocol and a foundation member. Along with us, we also have Ayush. Ayush is joining from the Uniland team representing Uniland Finance. And we have here Rahul, who is the protocol developer and also core team member, and Manish Meghanathan, who is our lead protocol developer and also core team member. So welcome guys. Awesome. So just to introduce you guys to Uniland Finance. So Uniland is the pioneer of multi-chain permissionless lending and borrowing for all ERC20 tokens. Uniland is shaping the future of futuristic base layers for all DeFi applications. Brilliant. Okay, so moving to the first question. Ayush, you want to take this? So Ayush, I just want to understand, DeFi so far has come a long way, correct? So what are your thoughts about the current state of DeFi?
Hello. Hi everyone. Thank you for the introduction. So yeah, we are a lending and borrowing. I'll just a little bit explain a bit about Uniland. We are a lending and borrowing solution. So you have different lending and borrowing solutions live in the market, like Aave, Compound, and all. But where do we differentiate from them is that we are completely permissionless. So any token, any ERC asset can be lended on borrowed on Uniland once we launch our V2 live. When we launch our V1, we launched lending and flash loans applications, and it was like around 30 plus tokens were listed on Uniland, and we were live on 4 chains, and we also did like $50 million worth of volume on flash loans. So with the V2, we are aiming a bigger number of tokens and a lot of like we are going to be live with a different form of EVM chains and roll-ups and everybody. So coming to your question, that DeFi has come a long way. Yeah, we have I think we started in 2017. The initial growth of the DeFi was around. It was crazy. We saw the DeFi summer and everything happening. And what happened right now is that a major part of the blockchain ecosystem is DeFi. DeFi is taken the center stage. So yeah, this has been tremendous growth for everything. We are seeing Bitcoin started with the goal of having a decentralized world where and it started with the with going away from institutions and centralization. So DeFi has actually taken that goal very forward, and right now we are in a good place. We have very innovative protocols like Uniswap, and where you can just launch any token and start your trading, which is huge. You have a lot of protocols for lending, you have a lot of protocols for staking. Yeah, so I feel we are pretty ahead.
Ganesh, I would like to ask you the same question. What are your views on the current state of DeFi?
I mean, we have been actually working on DeFi before DeFi was called DeFi or kind of peaked out in early 2018.
What was it called then?
So our team was actually exploring DeFi use cases back in 2017 only. Back then, there was only 1 or 2 projects, and they were all advised and initiated by Vitalik himself on top of Ethereum. And in parallel to that, one of the early applications on MOI Finance was already doing real-world adoption using the concept of Raska and transforming that on top of blockchains and trying to add more transparency to the whole game. But today, if you look at it, after DeFi Pulse and looking at the TVL numbers growing every day. I think that
It's not growing every day right now. It is not growing every day right now. Yeah, it was growing every day.
yeah, it's been a long 6 years journey of ups and downs, and looking forward to see some calm waters in the next couple of months until the big news happens, and which we'll talk about soon.
So we have alpha here.
Awesome. So there's something very interesting. You mentioned real world adoption. So guys, from a developer perspective, Rahul, I would love to understand what is holding us, what is holding DeFi away from mainstream adoption?
Um, uh, I'm not very much into DeFi, but at a technology standpoint, how would I answer this is this technology requires a lot of maturity, right? Yes, a lot of things have been evolving, right, from Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other protocols, MOI, but the fundamental fabric which is missing is the usability. It's nowhere near to what a Web2 solution offers today. The way you build Web2 solutions, if you see the way you build e-commerce solutions, completely different from how you build an ERP system. That user experience is not available on Web3 today, right? So it's because the systemic approach that people have taken in order to make Web3 general purpose, I would say, the protocols. Coming to DeFi, I would say the fundamental problem is smart contracts. So yeah, it sounds odd, but if we get away from this contract to oriented world or app centric world to a more asset oriented world or participant centric world, that would make this complete DeFi process very simple, safe and secure, right? So MOI, just giving you an example where in MOI you don't really need to deploy an ERC20 contract or ERC720 contract, 721 contract to create your tokens. So you can just fire a basic native transaction, which will help you to create different type of assets and manage the assets without writing any custom business logic. So if you have such a user experience without deploying any contracts, if you're able to create and manage assets natively, right, it becomes very easy for adoption. Yeah, so we need a separate. I would say it's a completely different approach towards the problem rather than moving with the same application-centric approach. You'd have something which is different.
Okay, great. Manish, do you resonate with the sentiment that Rahul shared? Do you resonate with the sentiment? If you do, can you double click on how? Can you double click on how MOI is trying to solve these problems of usability or reaching more to the users?
Gotcha. Yeah. So yeah, I agree with Rahul when he says that the primary problem that plagues adoption, not just for DeFi or any Web3 but application, but for Web3 generally, is usability. Right? It's really the big hindrance. It does not need to be this way, and a lot of it comes and stems from the fact that the industry as a whole, the development ecosystem here is still maturing. It's still finding its way. At MOI and at China Labs, we worked very hard right from the beginning to look at everything from a usability perspective. Right, it was important for us that we first figure out how the end consumer would consume this product before we even began building it. The nature of we never built something or designed something without first thinking about how it would end up being used. Right? We thought of the use cases, we thought of the real world scenarios in which people would use it, but we also did not limit those use cases to our imagination, knowing full well that the industry and the ecosystem would find ways to use it beyond what we could think about. With those in mind is how we always build, whether that's the programming language or whether that's the protocol or whether that's the simulation or development tooling or whether that's the asset framework. Everything that we ever worked with, we always thought about it from a usability angle. And with MOI specifically, the fact that we have native assets and we have specific interaction types for working with different types of assets or different behaviors of assets, it lends to security, it lends to credibility, it helps people feel more connected with the technology that they're using. Right, firing a random transaction that does something on a contract that they have a hard time understanding doesn't necessarily lend itself to credibility or safety. people want to feel like they know what's happening with their asset, right? Whether that's working within the real world or even on a Web2 based learning solution, they want to know that their assets are sitting in certain places or behaving in certain ways. And having a protocol layer that helps achieve that, I think, is very important. Not just from a trust perspective, but then from a visibility perspective, they want to know where their assets are, what they're doing, and like where exactly it is or how it is being utilized by not them. Like, so people want that flexibility and that visibility. And I think hopefully MOI is kind of addressing some of these things, and they're hopefully building a paradigm of thought for other people to also, implement on top of it.
Interesting. That's a very interesting answer. I feel like we sort of jump started into what MOI is and Sarva is doing. Rahul, how about you do some context building in terms of what MOI is doing currently and how we have come along? So just a brief history about MOI and then just take it from there.
Yeah, it was as Ganesh started, right? Formally, we started building some DeFi solutions like hedge fund management system, P2P lending platform on Ethereum. Soon we recognized that this is not going to work, right? Because the usability is nowhere real, right? And there are a lot of problems like volatile gas cost, right? Scalability issues, safety issues, security issues, and the biggest concern is like how do you work in along with the government, right? So, non-auditability, I would say, compliance, regulatory and compliance friendly, right? So there are big challenges when you're trying to build something for the real world. If you want to get mass adoption on it, right? So soon we recognized it and we started fundamentally understanding the design choices made by people building Ethereum, other protocols at that particular point of time, and we soon recognized that this is not going to go anywhere, right? I mean, I would say when I say this is not going to go anywhere, the approach is very systemic, right? They have traditionally used the same techniques that they use to scale distributed databases, right? So blockchains are not distributed databases. Blockchains are more sort of value systems, right? So you need fundamentally a different approach to build a global value network, right? Where people are going to transact different, not only economical values, right? It's possession, barter, whatever value it is, right? So that's where we started this project, where Ananta has a vision to build a true participant-centric protocol, right? The complete technical stack, and we started researching on the fundamental building blocks like networking, consensus, state management, computation, right? And we started slowly identifying the problems and building solutions based on our core vision of building, which is something participant-centric. Then we have this idea of context right from day one, right? Because as I told you just before, the user experience is completely different. The way you purchase a coffee transaction is completely different from what you do for a house sale transaction. If you take any traditional Web3 solution out there, the user experience is exactly the same, right? So what is different in this both transactions? The context is different. One transaction is just a low value transaction and you're really not bothered. Other transaction is a very high value transaction and you're really concerned about it, right? So the user experience in those transactions are different. What we really try to do is how do we do a participant-centric protocol is by understanding the context of these interactions, how users interact in a day-to-day life, and if you can replicate something similar model on a digital space. And that's where we started MOI. We started building the core technology around MOI. And we have a testnet out there like a couple of months now. And we are heading towards our mainnet. So yeah, this is all about the journey.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rahul, for that context. So bringing the conversation back to a little bit of DeFi general perspective. So Bitcoin ETFs are, so just talking about recent trends. So recently there have been Bitcoin ETFs that are getting approved. So Ayush, what do you think about it? And what do you think of the implications of these moves are?
Yeah, so this is a good news. Like finally, we have Bitcoin ETFs also being approved by the SEC and everything. So what I see is that more or less, I mean, it is good news for the whole crypto because it is a Bitcoin thing. But we have been building a lot of solutions around
like asset management and everything in decentralized finance. Well, the basic concept of decentralized finance is that we do not want a single entity or custody to manage our assets. The users want to have the custody of their assets, and this actually is a two-way sword now. Like a lot of people who hold their custody, these guys are like, okay, they don't understand a lot of things. So I feel with the ETF coming into picture, a lot of institutions are looking at the whole blockchain space in a different view. So probably they will step up their DeFi game. They will want to jump into it. They will want to manage things for normal users. So currently Uniswap or everybody, what these guys have been able to capture is the user, which is like core crypto user. They have not been able to penetrate into, or any DeFi project has been able to penetrate into the core financial user, like a person who's having portfolio in stocks, or who's having portfolio in mutual fund and everything. Stocks is even matured, but mutual funds and all, like, insurance and everything. Like institutions are heavy in this industry. So with so they will see higher opportunity after these moves. They'll see that, okay, if we are going into it, they'll see that, okay, we can definitely go into DeFi as well. And I think that's good news. And this will open a lot of doors. I think Ganesh.
Okay.
I was having a conversation with Ganesh about it, so he can.
Yeah, my next question was sort of directed to Ganesh only. So I wanted to know your views on how this will play out with the institutions, because this is like a move that is very bullish for the institutions. What do you think will be the implications of that? How do you think it will pan out amongst the institutions, and what would be the ripple effects of these institutional changes on the retail? If you can throw some light on that.
The Bitcoin ETF war has been fought for the past couple of years, and it's actually been one of the most meticulous uphill war. Every time we guys used to get a telegram message that SEC rejected ETF, SEC rejected ETF, right? We were like, okay, maybe this is the 99th time, but 100th time we're gonna definitely make it, right? I think I believe with what Ayush mentioned, and I agree with his take. But I also want to double down on one key thing that Ayush highlighted, which is that now that institutional capital is actually going to inflow into these kind of ETFs now, starting with Bitcoin, but also with other crypto in the future. I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a big question around the custody of these assets. And most of them are traditional. I don't want to name them, but I think we all know who they are. And while they have a very good reputation in traditional markets, I think it is very critical to take care of the custody in a Web3 native way, not in a Web2, easy peasy way, right? So that's why I think MOI has the edge, where all your assets are under your own control and has the kind of transparency and customization that DeFi apps would also need, and so would ETFs look at right now, because this is the perfect convergence opportunity where institutional requirements may not be met by all DeFi applications or platforms, but at the same time now DeFi users in retail as well as institutions running these DeFi platforms will now struggle hard in the next couple of months to actually keep themselves ready for institutional overflow of capital. And this is where I think there's a very good opportunity to explore the custody situation in crypto and try to make it more safer for the end user who will have to hold them back at the end of the day. And look forward to see how MOI can actually help there keep responsible custody.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ganesh. Rahul, I would like to ask you a question. This is a bit different question from what we're speaking. So there has been this concept of safe DeFi that has been going around, and it's been spoken with the MOI team extensively. I just wanted you to throw some light on it and also give the world an understanding of what safe DeFi is and what we mean by safe DeFi. Thanks.
Fundamental idea a little bit. I mean, DeFi is all about decentralized finance, right? Right. You have complete control and ownership of your assets. That's the goal, right? But the way you see how DeFi is being carried out today, all your assets are mostly sitting in some contract held by some application, right? So you technically doesn't own your asset. Your assets are sitting in a contract, right? And that's where a lot of attack vectors, if there's a small breach or some small attack on the contract, a lot of people are losing a lot of money, a lot of assets, right? So the fundamental problem behind this is the idea of smart contracts managing your assets, right? And what we do at MOI is basically, yes, apps can manage your assets, but your assets will never leave your wallet, right? So that is what we call it as safe DeFi. Yeah, you get the flexibility, you get the flexibility to manage a particular person's asset, but asset doesn't leave your account. Like today, how Bitcoin is always managed at your account level, right? You have the UTX in your account, and in Ethereum, the native ETH is always sitting in your wallet, right? In MOI, every asset can be managed in the same fashion, right? So that is what we call it as safe DeFi. It gives you more control. User has more control on his assets because his assets are never leaving his account. But at the same time, applications have flexibility to manage the asset and move around in the network, right? So yeah.
Thanks. Manish, can you give us some understanding from a technical side of things? How is MOI sort of implementing this concept of safe DeFi?
Yeah, sure. So, like as Rahul just mentioned, right? So whether Bitcoin, where the asset is managed at the UTX level for the participant, or an Ethereum, where the native ETH and a native Ethereum token is extremely secure because it is managed at the protocol level, while all assets or ERC20 tokens created within the Ethereum protocol are, to be a little bit harsh, effectively just variables in a contract, right? They're not really unique values that are managed at the protocol level security, right? So the first thing MOI did was ensuring that assets as a whole are native to the protocol, regardless of whether that's the MOI token or any token, right? I could create a token called the Manish token, which has the same security or importance in the protocol as the protocol token itself, right? So the first part was we made sure all assets in the protocol got the security of the native token. The second part is we added these new layers for managing assets, right? Whether that's through approval-based spending, whether it's that I give Rahul ability to spend my balance, that's approval-based spending that you have in ERC20, or whether that's something like staking, or whether it's something like lockups, or even something like secured staking, basically staking, right? So we added these layers into the native asset management of MOI, right? Within a participant's account, they have something called their approval balances, and they have something called their locker balances. So if you go to a bank today, just your regular bank, and ask for a credit card, they may ask you to set up a FD, a fixed deposit, as a means to secure your credit line. But in Ethereum, but the thing is, even though the FD is in the bank's name, the money is yours. At any point, you could close the FD and close the credit line, right? You don't get that same level of flexibility with Ethereum because the money effectively moves to the contract, and it creates all these honeypot attack vectors. Take Ethereum staking contract for that matter, 32 ETH per user, right? Per guardian or per operator, basically sitting in one contract. There's millions of dollars of value in that one contract. One attack vector, if someone finds a breach on the contract and violates it, you lose so much value. Right, we've heard about the DAO hack, and since so many times, we've lost so much value. In the community's lost so much value because of these attack vectors. In MOI, basically, this is impossible because the money never leaves the wallet, right? So if I chose to stake, let's say 32 MOI for becoming an operator, that 32 MOI continues to sit in my balance, but moves to a section of my wallet called the lockup section that only the staking wallet can unlock and lock. Right? So the staking contract just now maintains an entry saying Manish has staked 32. I could completely breach the contract and all I'll know is that here are 10,000 people who have each staked 32 MOI tokens. I will never be able to access the assets itself. Right? I would need to independently attack the 10,000 wallets to access that funds. So you've split the security up, you've really leveraged decentralization and peer-to-peer asset handling to introduce this idea of safe DeFi, right? Whether that's for staking, locking up assets, for lending, for approval-based transfers, any kind of use case that requires DeFi today can leverage this safer alternative that avoids honeypots and dangerous attack vectors that we are known to exist. It's a little astounding that protocols today, knowing the kind of attack vectors we have not thought of ways to mitigate them by simply thinking differently, right? And that's kind of one thing that we strive to do at MOI always.
Yeah, and just to add on a point, he forgot what he has built. He has already built a logic layer to completely manage it, right? You can write very complex business logic to manage these assets. So it's just not the features that protocol gives you. Yes, protocol gives you all the basic features you require to manage your asset. But if your business logic requires something more complex, you can write a logic which can manage these assets. You can write a logic which can work around these assets, right? So yeah, and that logic need not to be a contract, right? The logic means it's just a business logic. You need not to have a state associated with it, right? Yeah.
That's fairly, yeah.
I think this conversation is getting better and better, right? Like Manish said, Ethereum's deposit contract today hosts billions of dollars, multi-billions of dollars worth of ethers today, which is used in Ethereum 2.0 for, becoming a validator, right? Sure, there may be an issue in the Solidity smart contract that could actually trip up the access to the entire assets in the contract. But what if there is an issue in the runtime also? That's a different layer of attack vector and a security issue altogether. But further, if you go downwards, actually, then we identify some more issues like chain reorganization, which itself could be a whole new attack vector, which can be applied on top of Ethereum or any other monolithic blockchains for that matter.
What is a chain reorganizing vector? Like if somebody who is not technical like me, how do I understand it?
Essentially, it's basically changing the history and order of events in the history in a concerted manner. And it's easier to do that in layer 2s and layer 3s because they all use very few number of nodes actually. Or a worst case, we will not name names, but most of the ZK rollup implementations have a single sequencer. Basically, one node is submitting all the transactions to the mainnet, right? The L2 to L1 patch submissions, right? I think people will have to realize that at some point in time. Most importantly, the guys who are developing DeFi on these bridges, layer 2s, and rollups. And the reason why I'm mentioning this again and trying to make an overarching statement is because most of these attack vectors are invalid in MOI. You cannot take an EVM deficiency which has been solved in Ethereum and try to apply that attack vector on an EVM forked implementation or something like that and some other L2 or L3 abstraction because that's simply not possible in MOI, right? So I think those are the overarching highlights from a design point of view, which makes MOI much more ready for institutional DeFi, where they know that it's kind of similar to Android versus Apple, right? Android has such a large customer base, and it's open source to a certain extent, where there are well-known issues which are still not resolved. Although MOI is gonna be open source, it's similar to Apple, where it's tougher to crack into that ecosystem because it's well built and has very clear objectives, and that does not allow for unmonitored forking where we don't know some issues in Web3 and EVM implementations, and we still go ahead and use it and basically become responsible for losing millions of dollars in customers' money.
That is really reassuring, listening to all the arguments that you have made to us. why MOI will sort of be more safer and secure way of moving forward for institutions and retailers as well. So just taking the conversation ahead, Ayush, what do you think the DeFi space is now heading towards? Where do you think the DeFi space is heading towards? What are the trends that you think are coming up, and what is it going to be like 6 months down the line, 1 year down the line? If you can throw some light.
So, yeah, like currently, I think the biggest question about DeFi is the security. So, I think a lot of new things are coming into the market. And the second biggest problem right now that we see is that we have been playing around with the users that we already had. Now we want to go to the user, like which is out there. So there's uh, a lot of innovation needs to be happening where DeFi reach out to users rather than user coming into the DeFi. And I think a lot of projects are doing it. I see a trend around real world assets. So at Uniland, what we are trying to do is we are trying to form a layer where we can become the layer for lending and borrowing. So anything can be lended and borrowed on Uniland. What exactly happens after it is that there are a lot of assets which are right there sitting in people's wallet, but these which are holding value. Like when you hold value in terms of mutual funds or bonds or stocks or like fiat currencies in banks or wherever, this money is not sitting idle. This money has been put on work by your asset manager or somebody. But currently in crypto, what is happening? If I am holding some tokens, this is just sitting money. There was a huge fad about staking protocols, but the staking protocols were just not doing anything rather than putting money from their pocket for people to hold their assets. We want to put assets to work. So that's why we are opening this layer for lending and borrowing of every asset so that this market can be opened and we see more value getting unlocked from whatever assets that people have. Like, there are millions of dollars of assets which are sitting in people's wallet. Apart from this, I see a lot of innovation like Uniswap V3 is coming. Like it's going. There's a lot of buzz about it. So, sorry, V4 is coming. Yeah, now it is like a thing with Uniswap. Every year they are releasing new version, like probably by. So this is like iPhone something, but yeah. A lot like we see the maturity is coming into the market. We see more complex products coming in, which will become like your infrastructure layers, and then you will build application layer on top of it to onboard users. Like there are a lot of one-stop authorization protocols where you can just KYC once, and then you can do whatever you want to do on your DeFi. So institutional regulations are also coming in. Singapore is one of the country. Japan is one of the country. So these guys are adopting. I think we are heading in the right direction, but yeah, the security that we have right now, it is again like you cannot have millions of dollars of people's money and fuck around with it.
Agreed. Okay, that's it for my end. I think yeah, we'll wrap this up. Thank you guys. And any closing remarks, Ganesh?
Just wanna add on to Ayush's point. I think we guys know this, but the V4 Uniswap router is going to now introduce protocol fees apart from network fees, and apart from that, there is a liquidity provider fees. So now, from the documentation, the official documentation that I read from Uniswap, it looks like from December onwards, this governance proposal might come to uni holders where there will be a request to be considered where Uniswap will get personally rewarded again in protocol fees as well. So I think with that model implemented in Uniswap, and Uniswap being one of the center point for all the kind of deep innovation which started like 5 years ago, I think that is going to now trickle down into like other implementations as well. And now they have also made it a BPL license in Uniswap. That's another technical take. Will not dive deep into that. I will take that offline, but that highlights the importance for user-specific chains and protocol-driven network intelligence and visibility for the supply and demand instead of relying on these dexes. These dexes are supposed to help you exchange values, but now what I'm seeing is over time they're becoming again commercial projects where they're introducing a new type of fee every year and trying to kind of squeeze in that very slowly but likely. And that's where I think MOI developers can utilize the benefit of an open visibility of the supply demand and then try to re-implement barter into MOI. So I think that's just one final thought I wanted to add to the panel, and want to check with Rahul or Manish if they want to give any message to the developers on how we can decentralize a decentralized exchange again further in MOI and make sure that these kind of shenanigan fees are not added on top of developers, because on top of users, because retail users are already suffering with network fees in Ethereum as it is. And on top of that, there is a protocol fee.
Manish, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give away too much, but we have, this is a conversation literally that Ananta, Rahul and I had last night. And it's the important point here is some of these things can't necessarily be eliminated, right? For example, a protocol fee is kind of necessary, unfortunately, but maybe it can be regulated or can be kind of constrained by governance. The other thing is when you have liquidity providers or whether it's swap providers or something like that, having competition and having a fair market value essentially is going to be very important to keep costs down. When you have a monopoly, these things tend to kind of go out of control. So we do have a internal sub-protocol in talks and discussion, which is kind of figuring it out. We have just kind of internally codenamed it EcoSwap, and it's fully decentralized exchange where there is an internal swap protocol and an external, internal, what's the word for it, patch protocol? I don't know what the internal part is. It's a protocol where you kind of lock up, and then there's a separate multi-agent protocol where different users, effectively different liquidity providers, can work on that central lock protocol to do the swap protocol separately. So the swapping work can be done essentially like a freelance. Anybody could run their contract to do the swap. And that kind of assets are managed at the participant level, and you just are relying on a liquidity provider or an agent to kind of handle that actual code execution of it alone. You could do it yourself.
That should be open for free market.
Yeah, you could do it yourself. If you really wanted to, it's empowering enough that you could do it yourself. But if you didn't want to, you could rely on an existing service. But when there's enough of these services, you have a fair market value advantage. But enough people are doing it that there's a competitive advantage. And over time, the market is kind of settle into the lowest denominator value that makes sense cost-wise also, right? That's the way you bring it down, right? You don't just enforce ideas. You compete and incentivize people towards bringing it down and being a fair market value. I don't want
Very
to
interesting, man. Yeah. Since you have given so much alpha, might as well give us some more alpha in regards to when can we expect this decentralized exchange within a decentralized exchange.
And I mean, it's just something that we're thinking about pre-mainnet, of course, but it's part of MOI's mainnet spec because it will
Awesome.
yeah.
Really looking forward to it. Thank you, guys.
Do you want to take any questions? I see somebody
Yeah.
chatting in the YouTube.
Okay. There are a couple of questions. Are there any questions in the live stream? Vishal, can you check?
Just hello from New Zealand.
Yeah, okay, awesome.
Hello from New Zealand.
Hey. Awesome. Okay, thank you so much, guys. Thank you for taking the time. Really appreciate it. Bye.
Close the live stream.
Thank you.
let's go